Hey man, so our off-grid firewood mini challenge, off-grid firewood mini challenge. The idea was to see what it would take to cut a week's worth of firewood by hand. We blew right past that. I've got about 8 weeks worth of firewood cut. The idea grew out of an idea Mariah had, and then I combined it with an idea I saw on a channel called Skullcraft, where a guy was cutting all his firewood slowly with an axe. We sort of talked about this in a couple of earlier videos. What's it take to have a off-grid firewood? You know, chainsaws aren't off-grid. That you got to have gasoline, you got to have oil, you got to have the chains wear out, the bars have to be surfaced. You know, even if you had files to sharpen, the files don't last very long. Chainsaws are pretty grid dependent. They're not as bad as electricity, but they're pretty grid dependent. So we set this challenge to cut ourselves a week's worth of firewood by hand. Like I said, we blew right through it. We got about 8 weeks worth of firewood for us in the first part of the season, at least. Pretty easy. I think I could cut the entire year's worth of firewood in probably about a 40-hour work week. You know, if I took a week and dedicated it to cutting firewood, I could have all of our firewood cut for the year. Or if I cut, 30 minutes a week, throughout the year, I could have all the firewood cut, or some permutation thereof. I have been shocked at how easy it would be for us to cut all the firewood we needed for a year. I could do it this way with very little. I mean, there's always opportunity cost, but there wouldn't be many on this. I just completely lost my train of thought. I mean, I just derailed. Let me try to catch up. This is the pile of everything I've cut so far. Like I said, it's probably close to a cord. We probably need 2 cords for a winter. That would be pretty safe for us. This is Georgia. Our winters aren't severe. Our house is fairly well insulated. It's pretty modern. But let me show you the setup real quick and see if I can get back on track, because I mean, I just completely lost my whole train of thought. So I made some sawbucks, and if I had to do it over, I'm not sure if I would make them higher or not. I think it would be better for the cutting if they were higher. It might be harder for the loading. So I don't know. I'm cutting sweet gum logs right here off the place. I like to keep them about this size to a little bit bigger. That seems to cut the easiest. I'm cutting them by hand with the double bit axe, which I finally broke down and decided to try to sharpen and put an edge on. It appears to help a little bit. Don't laugh at me. Think about it from my standpoint. It's an axe. It's steel. You're whacking a tree with it. How hard can it be, right? But I don't have the edge right where it's not Wrangler Star approved yet, but it's better. And I can see what I'm seeing is a bigger chunk. It doesn't seem to be any easier. It's just taking a bigger chunk, which has to mean it's going faster. So I'm keeping one side sharp and one side dull for, if I have to get towards the base, or I think it might go into the dirt, I want to keep this sharp edge out of the dirt. The other thing I did is I took the varnish off this handle a little bit. I've never done a lot of axe work in the past, and what I found was that swinging like this was a lot different than splitting. And what was happening is my hands were getting sweaty. I started doing this in warmer weather, and my hands were getting sweaty, and it was just sort of pooling up on that varnish, and it was making the grip a little hard. So I sanded that varnish down a little bit, and that helped a lot. And then, of course, once the weather cooled off, I didn't have the problem as much anymore. So that's the axe I've been using. I believe it's a 4-pound head. I don't remember, though. I weighed it at one point, and I forgot. Double bit, obviously. Had it for a long time. It was only like a $40 axe, but this is what I'm felling the trees with. And we've showed some videos of me knocking down a tree. A tree like this will come down in a minute. Literally, I can have a tree that size down in a minute. So I'm using the tomahawk. It's not just a toy. You saw the other video where I got all waxed poetic about it. It's really good for lemon. I mean, it's really good for lemon. Now, obviously, you can use the big axe for lemon, but where this one kind of comes into makes itself useful, here, is you can start using the tomahawk to work up stuff like this. You know, you don't have to haul it over there and put it on the saw. You just put it on a log or a stump. It takes 2 chops to get through that. The axe is just a little bit too big to do that. But if you come in with a slicing motion, you can really cut up a lot of this little stuff really easy with this tomahawk, and that makes it worth having around. And then, you know, you do the limbs since you got it out anyway. But it's not just a gimmick. It really does help. It helps a lot with working up the smaller stuff. It's here. Hold on one second, son. Can I borrow that hatchet for a minute? Thank you. You can see the difference on the handle. The heads are about the same weight, but when you've got all that extra leverage on that handle, oh man, it makes it so much easier. Thank you. So this, I really love this thing. This is a great little tool. I recommend it for anything. Our saw, I bought it brand new. It's an E. Garlic & Son Lynx brand Sheffield. It's a 3-foot long cross-cut saw. This handle comes off and will fit up here. I don't end up using the handle a whole lot. I usually just end up using it like a saw. This thing has just recently stopped cutting very well for me. It started binding. It did really good when we first got it, up until just recently. But now, I don't know, it's just not doing real well. I don't know, it's the first time I've ever had a crosscut saw. I don't have a lot of experience with them. Of course, I didn't look up any tips or tricks or anything about using them. I just started cutting. So I need to figure out if I did something wrong. I don't know why it's not working as good. But it should take me right at a minute to cut that, to buck that log there, that one cut when the saw was working right. It goes pretty good once you get a rhythm, a good smooth stroke. You're going from one end to the other. You're not trying to bear down and make it cut. If you can't make it cut, but if you just let it glide in there and go, you know, get those long, smooth, slow strokes, it goes pretty good, remarkably fast. You would be shocked at how quick you'll get through a log. And then we got our splitting maul. I talk about not doing how-to videos. If there's anything I'm qualified to do a how-to video on, it's splitting firewood. I'm pretty good at it. I've done it for a long time. Started when I was 9. Used to drive my brothers crazy. I was the oldest boy, so Dad would be working the chainsaw. We all hated hauling the wood. I was older, so I got good enough to split quicker than the rest of them did, and they had to haul the wood, and I'd split it, and then they had to load it in the truck. It drove them nuts. But it gave me an incentive to get really, really good at splitting firewood, and I did. This is a man splitting maul right here. This is not the one you start off with. If you've never really split firewood before, I got this off of eBay. I bought the head and I put the handle on it. Don't go to eBay and get a 10-pound splitting maul and put a wood handle on it. You got to work up to a 10-pounder, especially with a wood handle. You miss once. If you overstrike once with this 10-pound head, you will snap this handle and you'll be replacing your handle. I started off with a 6-pounder when I was a kid. I swung a 6-pounder for years. For a long time, the best split maul I'd ever found, I'd gotten at Walmart, believe it or not, and it was an 8-pounder, and it was round except at the front. It was the weirdest thing. I've never seen a split maul like it, and it still, to this day, it hit really, really hard for being an 8-pound splitting maul. I lost it somewhere along the way. I don't know when or where or how, but then I got this 10-pounder, and this thing is amazing. I mean, it thunks. It thunks. Wood will explode when you hit it with a 10-pound splitting maul. But like I said, if you've never done a lot of firewood cutting before, don't start with a 10-pound splitting maul. Because what's more important in splitting firewood than your weight and power and everything is accuracy and knowing where to hit the log. You know, you really got to watch your log to see where the knots are going to be and where the old limbs were and where the stress cracks are in the top and everything. Splitting firewood is a really fun, kind of an art, and once you get into it, it's pretty satisfying, especially if you're splitting something like red oak or one of the fun ones. But anyway, be that as it may. So here's Here's my suggestion to anyone who wants to do this. First off, it is one of the most deeply satisfying and fulfilling things I've ever done. You just feel like a man when you're cutting down a tree and you're hauling it out of the woods and you're working it up for your family and you're doing it with your own muscle and power and, you know, simple tools. Just a deeply satisfying, fulfilling experience. So much so that I really have to make myself stop, because I would probably just keep cutting. I really enjoy it. Good workout. I mean, a really good workout. So, and to that end, if you've never done this kind of work much before, I would say, you know, don't jump right into the deep end. Maybe don't go get a big double bit axe. Maybe start with a smaller axe. You know, take your time, go slow. You're gonna get blisters. I don't work with gloves. I can't imagine that gloves would make a difference. Like I said, I've done this for a long time. I work with my hands anyway. I still usually get blisters every year when it comes firewood time. The worst ones I'll get are right here underneath the thumb from the swinging motion when you bring your hands down together. Not every year, but frequently I'll get bloodied and blistered in those areas. So it's hard work, and you got to build yourself up to it. You're going to use muscles you've never used before in your back and your shoulders and whatnot. So like I said, don't just run out there and start chopping like a madman, like Bugs Bunny or something. Take your time and work up to it. And I would say if you're going to start splitting firewood, start with that 6-pound fiberglass handled maul, because otherwise you're going to be changing maul handles out all the time. And it's going to slow you down, and you're going to get frustrated and angry. And when you get a little bit better, maybe start looking at an 8-pound or a 10-pound. I've never used a 12-pounder. You know, I've used some bigger ones, 16-pounder and 24-pounder monster mauls. We used to call them. They're gimmicks. They're not worth it. You know, you can't be accurate with those things, and accuracy is far more important than just sheer brute power. Those monster mauls are kind of fun. I had a younger brother who loved using them because, you know, he was swinging a 24-pound maul. You know, he thought he was Thor or something, but they're not useful. So there you go. I'm trying to think if I left anything out real quick. We tried to do this video 3 times. The first time it went to 22 minutes and the phone died. The second time we didn't have any storage left because that 22-minute one was taking it all up. So I've tried to be pretty quick on this one. I could talk about this subject all day long. This is one of my favorite things to do. It's cut firewood. Now cutting it by hand is one of my favorite things to do. We're going to see what it takes to get that saw sharpened back up and get back at it. Hopefully in the future, you know, I will be saving the chainsaw for just, you know, using for the sawmill and stuff like that. Most of our firewood should be cut by hand. At some point, though, I'm going to run out of, I'll have to get into woodlot management because I've only got a 2-acre lot total, everything. And right now my woodlot's probably about 3/4 of an acre, and I'm going to burn through that in the next couple of years. But I want to. I mean, we're clearing that out for a reason. But at some point, we'll have to start thinking about, because you want your wood closer to the house. My family's from Texas before we came here. Not me, my grandfather. And at one point, the town they lived in Texas, they had to pick up and move the entire town 5 miles. I mean, everyone got together and voted to pick the whole town up and move it 5 miles because their wood supply had gotten so far away. And so obviously you don't want that to happen. You gotta manage your wood lot and everything, and there's some things we'll be looking at in the future. But a 2.4 acre lot's not enough to get all your wood off of anyway. So, you know, it's not going to be the whole. And I'm getting off topic now. Anyway, man, we appreciate you. Thank you. If you get a chance to do something like this, may I suggest you do it. It is well worth it. Even if you just split your own firewood, you know, maybe you don't go the whole 9 yards and fell it and snake it out and buck it by hand and all. Just split it. Deeply satisfying, very fulfilling, get you in shape. Will definitely make you feel like a man. Actually, it won't make you feel like a man. Will make you be a man. I mean, that's just, you know, it takes power, it takes control, it takes discipline, hard work, it takes strength. There's a lot about splitting firewood and felling trees and everything that is very manly. We appreciate you, man. Thank you.